Hi, welcome back to the podcast of sorts, and I am your host of sorts, Lucas. And let's just get started. I want to first talk about, the overall thing I want to start with is I want to talk about my New Year's resolution. I know New Year's resolutions are kind of a cheesy thing, I suppose, but it's something that I kind of believe in almost subconsciously. Like, um, I try to do something every year, and it's always something. What I normally do, my superstition, if one were to call New Year's resolutions a superstition, is I try to do something into the new year. So New Year's Eve comes, I wake up and I decide, what do I want to do more of in the next year? And then I decide what that is, and I do it into midnight. And so when the ball drops, I'm essentially starting the new year doing something I want to do more of in 2017. Um, or in the new year, excuse me. So one year I wanted to play more video games, and so I was in like high school. So that's kind of where my train of thought was most of the time. So I played video games into midnight, or I played with friends until midnight. And this previous year, or this 2016 New Year's, I was writing and reading. So basically, just immersing myself more in literature and art. And I've kind of refined that into what my New Year's resolution is going to look like. I want to read more and I want to analyze more. I read more, pretty straightforward. I have a bunch of books that I need to read. Um, but not only just read books, I want to experience art more. So I want to watch more movies because I was really bad at it in 2016. I want to listen to more audio stories. Maybe I'll subscribe to Audible. I don't know. I have a job now, so it's kind of like I can support the things that I've always wanted to do. Um, so that's really nice, you know. I want to experience art more, and I want to write about it more. So I want to create more essays, write more articles, and kind of test where my nonfiction skills are at. Excuse me while I take off my beanie. I hope that didn't make noise on the audio. I just it felt I felt like I couldn't hear myself as well. Um, but yeah, I want to analyze more, and I know that I did a decent job with that in 2016. I wrote two essays that I'm really proud of in the tail end of 2016. One was on the theme of silence in Shusaku Endo's Silence novel. Great book, by the way, written by a Japanese author. If you're looking for more foreign art, it's not in Japanese. You can find it in English. And there's also a movie by Martin Scorsese that's coming out based on the book, which I will definitely see. So I wrote an essay on that. And then I also wrote an essay on youth in art, which didn't have a focal point. I started with Shakespeare and Disney because I was watching High School Musical, and I just was like, wow, there's a lot of youth themes in this. I mean, obviously, but I felt inspired to write an essay, and so I did one the next day, um, talking about youth in general, like just what it means to be youthful in art, and um, I used Great Gatsby as a reference. I used Romeo and Juliet. I just used things I'm knowledgeable in, pretty much. So those are the two essays that I'm proud of, that I can think of off the top of my head, and I have more that I want to do. I actually have a few. I'm not really done with my blog. I think my blog is just going to be. I want it to be more professional, so at some point I'll probably get an official like Squarespace um, website, and I say Squarespace because that's the one I'm most accustomed to hearing about and seeing advertisements for. But really just a website that doesn't have a .weebly in it. If you didn't know, my blog is mantarrayblogs.weebly.com. The Manta, or M, R, and B are capitalized. So the first letter of each word, pretty much. I don't know why I made that complicated. Um, so I just wanted to be more professional. And I've kind of been realizing that I've been making those steps subconsciously. In 2015, when I started my blog, um, it was a monthly thing. So every month I would throw out new things I was interested in and new things I had researched. And it was very like foundational work. I didn't have any essays on it. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and so I just made it like things I was interested in as a megaphone for talking about things I liked. Pretty much the predecessor of what this podcast is now, is talking about things I liked and what I was interested in at the moment. And so I started there, and then when my senior year ended, I felt like I had to delete that because it was attributed to or it was attached to my photography class that I took in high school, and I didn't want my teacher deleting it, thinking I was never not using it anymore. So I deleted it myself, and I moved on to making my own, which is now the Manta Blogs Weebly. And so I did my best to make that one more professional. And it's not that it's not professional. It's just, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it, I think. And that's what I'm realizing, is there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just, I want it to be more professional. So like it would have its own website URL that wouldn't have a .weebly in it, or just anything that comes before the .com besides the official name of it. And I want it to look sleek and pretty, and Weebly's great. Like, I love it as a website generator, or creator, whatever you want to call it. But when I think of professional, I think of Squarespace, and that's because a lot of my YouTubers that I follow promote it as an advertisement, as a sponsor, I mean, because they use Squarespace themselves for their websites, and I think Squarespace is just really pretty, and it makes things look nice. So I'm gonna eventually move on to there, or like WordSpace, I think is the other one it's called. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just want it to look sleek and presentable to employers, or because I think what I really want to do with the rest of my life is just criticize and analyze art. As much as I would love to make art, I think I'm better at knowing what makes it better than I am at creating it. And maybe and that's probably the case for a lot of people, is they're like, I know how to make it better, and I just can't execute it. But I've been stuck in this rut for so long. An entire year. I haven't finished a short story in a very long time. I finished one, and it was for a friend, and that went pretty well, but it was for a friend, and it was at the end of the year, so it took a very long time for me to get there. And I also finished a spoken word. Okay, well, I finished more than I say I do, but what I'm saying is, like, I've been on such an art hiatus that I didn't know if writing creatively was my thing, or not that, but if books and stories were my future. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I like talking about art sometimes more than making it. I think I have a very non-biased opinion when it comes to experiencing things, which can only be refined. Like, I'm not super great at being non-biased, but I'm good enough where I feel confident enough to talk about art. It's just no one ever asks me, or I just never vocalize it because I'm so insecure, So this podcast is a result of that as well. It's a result of a lot of things, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think that for right now, 2017 is going to look a lot like pursuing essays and analysis and honing my skills. The tagline for that would be just get smarter, And I know that wisdom comes from everything, and just being alive another year makes you smarter. But I mean, like, reading all the books that I've wanted to read, exploring nonfiction, listening to documentaries, podcasts, interviews, watching more movies, just open myself up to experiences. Because I think art is the conduit for great life, for great lives. So if you experience more art, you'll have a better life, in my opinion. And so I just want to do that more often. I want to create responses to great art. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm kind of processing it right now, which is the case. Just sometimes I don't know everything. I'm just kind of working through things. Um, but yeah, like I I think that's really what I want to go, and I'm putting it in this podcast, um, because I want to make it a statement, you know, and I want to let you guys know that like if you feel like you're stuck in a rut creating things, um, switch it around and see like what else you can do that is close to your interests. Um, I know that that's kind of hard because for myself it's hard too. Like I'm not gonna lie and be like this is easy. Like moving on and doing something else. I don't want to give up on my book idea. I don't want to give up on writing new stories. But I've been in such a hiatus. I've been in a hiatus for 2 years. Like I haven't really created something like really pinnacle, like something I'll remember, like my book that I wrote 3 years ago in a while. So I I'm still writing and just I want to do less of that and do more research and experience. And if you guys are stuck in a writer's block, just take a break, figure out what you can do to promote growth, um, find out where your nourishment comes from, and explore that. You know, my nourishment comes from just knowing more. I like knowing a lot of things. I was really big into history when I was growing up, and that was because the History Channel played like these really good shows. Like it's not How It's Made, but it's similar to that, where they would talk about how the Parthenon was made or the pyramids of Egypt, or they'd talk about um, things that an ordinary mind would be like, I don't know how they did that, because it requires a lot of mathematics or science. Not because people are stupid. It just sometimes history is a lot more complicated than we think it is, you know, and sometimes people oversimplify, and that makes it a problem, you know. So I was really into history, and I still am. I haven't gone back to that in a long time. Like I haven't genuinely pursued history in a very long time. I was pursuing history, let's see. I think I stopped around junior year of high school because that's when I started writing. Um, I started my idea summer of that year. So, um, yeah, no, it's just been a while since I've pursued history. And the last thing that I've experienced that was historical and it just captured my like passions for history was the Hamilton musical. Um, Fun fact: I'm not a big fan of musicals. I don't know. It's just the songs are slow, and I just was never into duets and ballads, and it wasn't to my pace. But Hamilton came out, and even In the Heights, like I've listened to In the Heights, and Lin-Manuel Miranda makes like songs that capture my attention, but they also have the powers of musicals, and I can talk about that in another podcast, or I can write a blog about it. But I just wanted to mention that the last historical thing I've experienced is the Hamilton musical, and that inspired me to buy the book it was based on, which is Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow, which I want to read this year. Like, no questions about it. If I read only one book this year, it's going to be Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow, because I just want to get back into history. Some of my favorite things are historical. Downton Abbey is 100% historical. Um, the Great Gatsby is about the jazz era. I love that history. Um, some I want to watch the Ken Burns jazz era documentaries as well. Um, I'm kind of blanking on other things that were historical that I really enjoy. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is it's not historical, but it's interesting, and it has like historical aspects to it. It's talking about um, maritime. No, a better example, because that's science fiction, right? A better example is The Devil in the White City, which is a historical narrative about H. Holmes, who was a serial killer during the Chicago Fair. Um, and I really enjoyed the book. Like, it's about two men, one who built the World Fair and one who destroyed it. H. Holmes being the one who destroyed it, pretty much, because he was a serial killer and he was killing young women that came to see the innovations in Chicago, because Chicago was kind of like this forward moving, like, it kind of felt like it was on the verge of women's rights, essentially. Like, it was getting there. Like, this is the 1800s, because it was the centennial of Columbus. Was it the centennial? It was no, not Columbus. It was the centennial of founding of America because it was like 1876, and America wanted to celebrate in some way, and Paris just had their World Fair, and so America decides petitions like where are we going to put this fair, who's going to have it, and Chicago wins the bid, and there's two men involved. There's the architect, and then there's H. Holmes. Excuse me. So that was also something I was really interested in. I also really recently read Cicero. No, it's called Imperium. Excuse me, I have kind of hiccups. Imperium is a story about I think his name is Marcus Tullius. Yeah, Marcus Tullius. That sounds about right. No, what's his name? He was in the Roman Senate, and it's a trilogy by Robert Harris. It's written from his slave's perspective, Cicero, and no, Tiro. Cicero is the man's name. It's Cicero, and all that I'll put it in the description. I'm sorry, I'm really confused, and I'm trying to figure it out on the cuff, but I can't. I might be able to just pull my drawer open. Excuse me. There it is. Let's see. Marcus Cicero. Yeah, that was close. Okay, it won't be in the description anymore because I pulled the book out if you didn't hear me. So it's about Marcus Cicero, who's a Roman senator, and it's a trilogy of books, and it's essentially leading up to the fall of the Roman Empire, which I've always found to be super interesting. Like, if there was one period of time that I've always found really interesting, it was the Roman Empire, and how it expanded and its collapse. I also really loved Egyptian. Like, I'm a big prehistory, like a big medieval to ancient civilization history fan. Like, I love it. I'm not as much of a nerd as I'd want to be. Like, I would love to know more. But I love ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient China, like all these ancient Babylon, like the civilizations that essentially led to the societies we look at now. A lot of people equate Rome and Greece with the reasons we have what we have. And yeah, we have democracy because of those places. But places like China and Egypt and the Mayans, were one of the important reasons why we have the understanding of the number 0, or it was either the Mayans, Aztecs, the Incans. But you get my point. Like, a South American culture, not a white culture, not Italian, a South American culture is the reason we have understanding of that number, which is amazing. And Egypt is just astounding. They're so, they were ahead of their game. I love Egypt. And that's why I really liked reading the, I believe it was called The Golden Goblet in elementary school. It was about like a potter or like a... I don't remember the plot. I don't know. Wow. It's been such a long time. I don't know why I expected to remember that. But it was just a presentation of the society that Egypt was in. And I just love ancient civilizations. All the way up to the beginning of the 1800s is kind of where I lose interest. And I know I probably had a point before this. I love history a lot. But if you were to ask me what my favorite periods are, I'm just a big ancient history all the way up to the start of the Industrial Revolution. I don't think the Industrial Revolution is that interesting. Some people love world wars and like how technology inspired the societies we live in today and how it formed borders and all those things. Like, I'm sure that's great and I like it. But if you were to ask me what am I most interested in, what really gets me going is the foundations of civilizations is really interesting. And that's why I include the end of the 1800s, is because America started between the 1600s and 1776. 1776 being the official year where we signed the Declaration of Independence. So that's kind of the beginning of America. But the 1600s to the 1700s, there was a lot going on. It was really interesting. And I have the entire History Channel series on that. It's called The Founding of America, and it talks about everything, like Revolutionary War, the Founding Fathers, Benedict Arnold, just everything to do with the Revolutionary War. I love it. I love it so much because it's so interesting how they came out of the Enlightenment period, and they were just building off of those ideas, and they were building off of ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and just doing cool stuff. And so I think if you were to take away anything from this podcast, it's that I really enjoy knowing more. I like learning a lot. I like school. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just sometimes the social structures of it is really hard. I didn't make friends easily. And people be like, oh, you made friends easily. Like, they're my friend, and they're like, you befriended me pretty well. It's like, well, yeah, but there was a long period where it's just like, I now realize that some people I was friends with, I wasn't actually friends with them. Like, yeah, we were friends, we hung out, and we did all the things friends did, but at the end of the day, I didn't realize that I wasn't happy hanging around them, and I only had a few things in common, and if we were to hang out outside of school, I'd be kind of screwed. And I'm sure everyone has those friends where you're just like, if we hung out outside of school, I don't know what to talk about. And so I've just kind of realized, like, what I like and people I'm friends with. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, just learning more. That's my New Year's resolution is being a better person is always my thing. I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to be a better person. That's my life goal, is to be as good of a person as I want. Because, it's to do unto others as you would want unto yourself. That's how I show it to myself. Is like, if someone treats me poorly, I'm going to treat them well because I want to be treated well. And so they don't register that. And they'll continue to treat me poorly, but at least I'm doing my best to be a better person. So I hope that your New Year's resolution is going well. If you don't believe in New Year's resolutions, that's perfectly okay. It's kind of superstition, not because they never come true, but because you never really know where a new year is going to take you. So you can't put a finger on it and say it's going to be this. You can only say so much about a new year. And so I try not to put a lot of weight in New Year's resolutions, but I do try to do my best to follow through. And I think what I'm going to currently do is I'm going to, when I get home from work today, is I'm going to put all the books I want to read into a stack next to my bed. And every night I'm just going to read as much of the book that's on the top of that stack for as long as possible, and then I'm going to fall asleep. And now you can hold me accountable. I'm fully trusting that if you're friends with me and you listen to this, I know I just had my weird spiel about friends, but I've pretty much purged all the people that I'm friends with that I'm not confident hanging around anymore. So, and if you're listening to this, obviously we're close friends. I'm getting off the point. What I'm saying is, if you know me, and if you're listening to this podcast, you can just be like, hey, how's the book reading going? And I'll be appreciative because you're holding me accountable to something. And of course, like, if any of you guys, friends or not, are like, man, I just want to be held accountable for this. Like, I don't have anyone who will hold me accountable. Just ask me, because I feel like I just want to, like I said, I want to be a better person. And for me, that would mean helping people better themselves. And, sometimes that's hard because I want to be as helpful as possible, but there's nothing I can do. And I was going to talk about that, actually. But I decided not to, as a full podcast, not as just a side topic. But they're just scenarios where I feel like I want to help people, but I know that whatever I do won't really help. So you have to make that judgment call, or I have to make that judgment call. It's just like, am I really helping, or am I just kind of putting extra pressure on this person? So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I just kind of wanted to sit down and take advantage of this free recording session that I could do with no disturbances as much as I could. I hope that your New Year is going well and that your resolutions, or the lack thereof, is going well. And I will see you in the next podcast. See ya.